today we have Sujan with us, and he'll be talking about the birds of paradise. I mean, we requested him to cover probably all the birds of paradise. He actually initially wanted to cover only the West Papua. So I think he is finally managed to put up a story of all the birds of paradise. And just for update, tomorrow we'll have a talk on orchids. Last week we had a talk, but he couldn't finish that talk, so that's why we'll be doing that talk again. And the summer talk, it will be coming up like introduction to the spiders. Day after is bats. Rajesh Putamawasya will be doing a bats of India, and there'll be a talk on lions by Dr. Ravi Chellam. There'll be one talk on Indian biogeography by Pranay Lal, and Pradeep Krishan will be talking about desert flora. No? So we have more talks are coming up. So please do participate and enjoy and stay safe and all. I think over to you, Sujan. You can take over.
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Depends where you are. I can see a lot of faces for whom is good afternoon. I think for some is good morning, and for us in India is good evening. Well, um, I'll talk about the birds of Papua, not just the birds of paradise. I mean, 2012, we started planning a trip to this holy land of birds of paradise. And initially, we were reading all the trip reports, and everything said, "Oh, wish we did it when we were younger." You know, that was a key line in all these trips. Everybody struggled, physically struggled. So some of our friends thought, might as well do while our joints are still okay and we can still move around. So we planned this over a year, and in 2013 we did our first trip to Papua, and supposedly we were the first Indians to be there. So we landed up over there, and I will take you through the journey. I'll tell you as we go through. It's not everything is in sequence, but I'll give you an oversight of the whole place and how it works. And so, welcome everyone. This is a very, very typical Papuan forest and a Papuan man who was guiding us through some of the trails. This is their home. This is their food. This is their larder. This is what they live on. And please don't expect this to be anything as good as David Attenborough. This is far, far, far inferior quality stuff that you're going to see, photograph-wise. This is the birds of paradise, as you see, where first came from the specimens to Europe from Moluccas and to the King of Spain. They call them the Bolon Deuta. Deuta, even in India, Devta means God. So this was the birds of the gods. And there were, of course, the myth about, the skins that came in were used for the ceremonial purpose, and so they were stripped of all the things that they didn't want, especially the legs and the wings. So when the skins arrived in Europe, people didn't never saw a leg or anything, so they thought this was a legless bird, and the story was it never came down to earth. And as you can see, the female laid her eggs in a hollow on the male's back. Once across the whole New Guinea, this is still a wealth for their own culture. It's not just, as you can see, they use this. This is the lesser bird of paradise tail feathers, which are used on the head. These are lori feathers. These are other loris. These are possums, mostly couscous, etc. This is a typical man from the mountain who's on a ceremonial dress. This is a very, very special dress for them. And the men all dress up very ornate for ceremony, like the bird of paradise, and like to display. So these bird of paradise for them is like the wealth It's like currency for them. Now, this is a place where the bird of paradise exists. So this is the whole region: New Guinea, Halmahera, and bits of Australia. Australia also has two of its own bird of paradise, namely the rifle bird. So this is where, so total of 42 species of birds of paradise exist on Earth. There are two more which are waiting to be added, but still disputed. They across 15 genera, occurring on three major islands. This is the Halmahera and New Guinea and Australia. This is the Halmahera Island. They have three endemic bird of paradise over here. And one is on a Obi Island, which is just next to them, and not exactly on the main Halmahera, but still there are three species occurring here. This is the New Guinea from left to right. Now, New Guinea is split from the middle by a political boundary. On the western side is the West Papua. This district, I would say, belongs to Indonesia. And on the right is the Papua New Guinea, which is a country. So it's the same landscape. Both have their own specialities, and 37 species of bird of paradise are found on this island of New Guinea itself. They share a few of them amongst themselves, and there are a few endemics on the western side, and there are a few endemics on the eastern side. So this is the Papuan side. They have 7 endemics. This area is called the bird's head because it looks like a head of a bird. So it's called the Vogelkop. There are quite a few endemics in Vogelkop, and it's called the Vogelkop. Name is used in many of the birds over there. And the areas where we go for birding, mainly as a tourist, is Raja Ampat, which is also a big diving site. Then there's the Arafat Mountain, which has got a lot of its own endemic. This is the Nilokran, which is lowland swamp forest. The snow mountains in the middle, which goes up to 4,000, nearly 4,000 meters. A very different landscape from the rest of the country. And in southern Papua, which is also a lot of marshy area, there is some access to some birds of paradise over there also, which overlaps with the Papua New Guinea side. This is the New Guinea country. They have their own list of birds, of course. They have the 11 endemics. There are a few on the small islands over here. The rest are on the mainland. Here also, some of the birding areas are like Port Moresby, which is the capital. Then the Mount Hagen, which is in the middle. On the right is the continuation of this one. The Ambua Lodge, West New Britain, and the Kiringa. But there are some more areas over here which has got the Huon Peninsula and got some of their own, but they are very difficult to access. There is a lot of, it's not an easy place to go. Birds of paradise are related to crows. So they are corvids, not exactly corvids, but they're related to crows. And on the Halmahera Island, there are 3 species, of which the first one, which is the most, unimpressive looking bird, called the Halmahera paradise crow. Not all birds of paradise are very colorful. Some of them are a bit drab. This is the Obi paradise crow, which is found on the Obi Island next to Halmahera. Looks like, for us Indians, looks like a large crow. Now, this is the one, this is the standard wing bird of paradise. And this one has got these feathers on the back, which is a military standard. That's why how it is how it is in the Semioptera from the army marking. So they fly up and down like a helicopter when they display in very thick dark forest. Um, I don't have videos for this. I have video for some of the bird of paradise, but not this one. So these three are from the Halmahera Island. This is the lowland swamp forest of Nimbokrang. This is like miles and miles and miles of forest. There are some threats over here, like palm oil is coming in because palm oil can survive in the lowland. It's not anywhere near the scale that Malaysia is having, but they're still there. They're slowly trickling in the fringe areas. This is our guide Jamil. Jamil is actually Javan. He settled here in the 80s as a child, and then he's lived here all his life, and he is now a birding guide. And this is on our first trip. These are some of the trails inside. These are actually logging trails where they roll out the logs on these wooden planks. But this is what you walk on. The rest is all swamp. It's all wet, and you have to wear rubber boots all the time when you're going through this. This was our first bird of paradise, the 12 wires. You can see the little wires at the back sticking out. This is the male and the female. And I mean, it was an incredible sight. See, I can say bird of paradise displaying can be split in two. There are some which display high on the canopy, and there are some which do on the ground. This is the one that does on the canopy, not exactly a canopy, but it's on one stick. It has its favorite broken log on which it comes every morning and does its display. So here go. So that was like real life, how you see it. Not exactly an Attenborough thing which we get a eye level view, but this as a regular person in these forests, this is the view that you get. And obviously the sound next door is very, very bad quality Nikon camera shutters. I can never complain about Canon cameras. Now next is kingbird of paradise. This is a small, brilliantly red bird of paradise. Likes his own tree, stays around his own tree all day long, waiting for the female to come. Every time it comes, it goes extremely agitated, goes up and down the lianas. I have personally have never seen it display properly because it's always hiding behind leaves. But when it does come out for a brief moment, this is what it looks like. This is a female. Uh, Bird of paradise in the world of bird of paradise is all the job of the female to look after the eggs and look after the chicks and raise the chicks. And the males do only one thing: they go display and display and display. This is the lesser bird of paradise, the Chandravasi. There is even a place area called the Chandravasi Bay next to the bird's head. Okay, go to the next one. This is fine, isn't it? We'll see if the next video works. Okay, so this is the. Are we back on track, everyone? Yeah. This is a pale-billed sicklebill. This is another bird of paradise which is not usually featured in most of the bird of paradise videos. This looks like a giant scimitar babbler from India. They're all frugivorous and very specialized eaters. You can see the bill looks like this, and they all fruit eaters. Palm fruits. That's the most favorite for these birds. You want to try this out and see if this works?
So you've got some work you can go. Lazy to go. Not used to see. Nice bird.
The one that landed up at the end is a female of the lesser bird of paradise. Now, this is a rifle bird. There are a few rifle birds, of which this one is in the West Papuan side. The rest of them are further into the east, right into Australia. This is the magnificent rifle bird. So every morning, all these bird of paradise has a schedule, which makes life a bit easy for us bird watchers trying to look for them. They more or less come at daybreak, which is 6 o'clock in the morning for the equator. It doesn't change much over the seasons. And they sit on their favorite log and start displaying, not necessarily displaying, but to start with, they start with preening themselves and start calling and hoping a female arrives. So if the female arrives and we are lucky, the display happens. The female doesn't arrive. Sometimes they do a mock display, but not necessarily. But they stick around for some time, for half an hour, 45 minutes. And if the female comes, um, they will stay for longer. Right. So yeah, this is the here the female has arrived, and you can see the female on the left, and this bird has struck his pose with his wings open, head turned one side. And let's see if we can see the video. Next, let's see. Give it a shot. Tim Laman said in his journal and book that it waited for 9 years to see its action of a displaying rifle bird in Papua. I think we were incredibly lucky. We've seen this at least once in just 3-4 years of visit. So this is the Papuan frogmouth. I mean, I'm deviating into some of the other birds. This is a gigantic 2 foot long frogmouth which sits out in the open. And okay, I think I'll be very happy with the video. And there are two frogmouths in the West Papuan side, the marble frogmouth and the Papuan frogmouth. This one is the bigger of the two. This is another gem of the forest. There's a whole series of paradise kingfishers. These are all forest birds, forest kingfishers with a long, beautiful tail, streamers, and they are very shy. Very rarely comes out in the open. Takes a lot of looking for. They hide behind. They're not very big. They're much smaller than a white-throated kingfisher, and they usually like to hide themselves and call. But these are some of the gems of the Papuan forest. This is the nice one. This is the Victoria crown pigeon. These are massive ground pigeons. They of course go on the tree when they're scared, but they usually like to walk around the ground eating fruits. They're one of the best fruit dispersal species, and when they're first, uh, if they've seen you coming towards them, the first thing they do is they raise their wings and start walking away very fast. Only when they are really pursued will they go and fly up on a tree and sit there. This is another species, the Eclectus parrot. This is the strangest bird in the parrot world, where the male and female are completely different from each other. The first birds were taken from the wild and taken to the menageries of Europe. They thought they were two different species, and over the years they were kept separately, and they never bred. But one fine morning, somebody was of cages, so put them all together, and they started nesting. So on the right, the green one is the male, and on the left, the red is the female. This is a beautiful monarch, a golden monarch. We are used to seeing the blue one in India. They have quite a few monarchs over there. This is a golden monarch. This is another fantastic bird, an unreal looking species, the palm cockatoo. They're across the whole New Guinea, right into Australia. They like to nest on trees, and what they do is they drum. People think it's actually the display, but what's happening here is when they use a little stick to beat on the nesting hole, the female can figure out whether the nesting hole is good enough or not just by the sound of the hollow. So the male chooses a nesting hole and beats it with a stick from outside, and the female can hear and figure out if that nesting hole can be used. That's how they choose their mate and the nesting piece. Now we have gone into the snow mountain area, the Wamena and the Lake Habema. This is approximately 8,000 to 9,000 feet. Uh, Completely different habitat, a vast lake which has got its own teals. And there's only one patch of mountains with all the little endemics over here. This is how you camp. This is the kitchen. The locals, most of the time, you eat out of tin food and rice. This is staple. Papua is not exactly anybody's culinary destination. There are a few tribes who live in these areas, the Dani, Lani, and Korowai. We were lucky at that time there was a festival going on. So a lot of these tribes were dressed up in their traditional gear. And they're showing off basically three things. One is how to kill each other, how to run away with a pig, and how to rescue the dead. This is how they dress up. These are mostly emu feathers and other things, and they wear these long penis sheaths called the koteka, which like looks very painful, but that's what keeps them going. They all have the huge spears and bows and arrows along with them. And they're rushing around in the field in groups. So in these mountains, there is the Greater Loforina. It used to be called the Super Bird of Paradise, but somebody decided the name should be changed into something which can't be pronounced properly. So this is the Super Bird of Paradise from the mountains. And there's another group of bird of paradise called the Astrapias. They're also very difficult. They like to hide themselves. I mean, most of these birds are not the displaying types. So they like to just feed around. They don't have much elaborate display. They don't have a fixed site where they come every morning. So they're usually seen like regular bird watching walks. I just a chance upon them. So here's a splendid Astrapia. Some brilliant parrots, the tiger parrot, painted tiger parrot, also from the Habema region. They like to feed on the ground, eating from the mosses. The orange-billed lorikeet. The western crested berrypecker. These are all unique to these mountains. They're not found in the lowlands at all. This is like a large sunbird, the Myzomela. There are quite a few species of Myzomelas. They more or less fit into the same niche as the sunbirds, feeding on nectar and and from the flowers and little spiders and insects. This is a McGregor's honey eater. When we first went to Papua, it was still called bird of paradise. But of course, after DNA tests and everything, it's been shifted out from bird of paradise into the McGregor's honey eater complex. So, but it's a still very unique bird to see from these regions. Now we come down to the Arfak area. And Arfak region goes right from the lowland right up to 8,000 feet. Lush green forest, complete different set of species. Um, these are the lower areas. You can see a distant hornbill. This is the Blythe's hornbill of the Papuan hornbill sitting on the branch. These are Papuan guides assisting porters. This is Zeth. He's the main man from the Arfak mountain who's made this place a birding paradise. He's the main man who knows all the birds by sound, and he loves his birds. The roads are very difficult and very steep in these mountains. So only you can go up is these four-wheel drive trucks, and everybody piles on. They buy their stuff from the towns and take them up in the mountains. This is Zeth looking into a hide, setting it up. In the background, there's a hide for the display site for the magnificent bird of paradise. These are some of the places you have to sleep. Uh, Logistics have improved in Papua, but not everywhere. This one still is exactly the same as it was in 2013. Nothing has changed in these mountains. This is the magnificent bird of paradise. They like to display on the ground. They have their own little patch called a lake where they come every morning, clean them up, and wait for the female to arrive. And this is every bird had his own lake. This is the front. Here's the bird holding a pose. Sometimes they practice a pose, even though there is no female. sometimes they are so desperate they will pose for any other bird that comes into their necking area. Try another video if it's possible. This is another fantastic looking species called the Western Parotia. This is also Arfak mountain speciality. They also display on the ground, and um, they have their own little patch. They're quite large. I mean, difficult to make out the photograph. Their size, they're bigger than crows, actually. Really chunky birds. This is the Parotia on the ground. He's cleaned up his patch. You can see his glossy, shiny throat. He's got a white shield on the forehead. And try another video. Let's see if we are lucky this time. Okay, I'll skip the videos. The videos are not showing up very well. Now, there's another bunch of uh, bird of paradise which are called manukods. Now, they look like Asian koels, all black with little bit of features which differentiate between each other. So they came from this term, the manukodia, which is the bird of gods. So this is a Manute Devata. Manute means, I don't know, Devata means God, so probably bird of God. That name stuck on these birds. So this is the crinkle-collared manukod from our mountain. Now, this is a very interesting bird. This is a hooded pitohui. There are a whole bunch of pitohuis. Pitohuis are very that are called the poisonous birds. They develop these poisons, which is similar to the Colombian poison dart frogs, and it comes from this beetle that they eat. And it came to be known when the taxonomists were handling the birds. They got this tingling feeling on their hand, and eventually they found out that they have these poison, which actually protects them. It's a protective measure taken up, and usually not eaten by the Papuans. They think it's a rubbish bird, uh, avoided by the snakes and other raptors. That's the safety mechanism they have. This is another species, the Fogelkopf lophorina, which is this split from the superb or the previous one we saw, the greater lophorina. And this is now endemic to Arfak Mountains. This is a bird is displaying. He's got his hood up like this and the female in front. They too like to display on a log, but they always like the log on the ground, like unlike the rifle bird, which likes the log a little bit higher from the ground. Here is the long-tailed paradigala. There are two paradigalas, the long-tailed and the short-tailed. The long-tailed is a West Papuan endemic, and it has no display, it just goes around like a regular bird, eating fruits. And even if there is a display, we don't know about it. This is a 3-meter long bird of paradise called the black sicklebill. So this is at high point, high areas of the Arfak Mountains. It also prefers to have his own log where it comes every morning, sits over there, preens, and waits for the female to arrive. So what it does is raises the back feathers like a huge hood over his head like a cobra and holds it over there for some time and then goes on a side flip. This is how he holds it. So I'll skip the video. Unfortunately, the video is not working very well for most people. This is another one. This is the Arfak astrapia. This is also in the higher slopes of the Arfak mountain. Very difficult to spot. We have only seen juveniles. This is a borrowed photograph. Um, Hardly ever, very difficult. Just see one bird here, one bird. Very difficult to look around unless it comes to you. This is a very unique bird from the Arfak Mountains. This is the Vogelkopf bowerbird. It makes its bower, which is decorated with all kinds of stuff like flowers, berries, shells, plastic, bottle caps. As you can see, one in front. It will travel miles into the village to pick up anything that it fancies and it thinks it will fit in his bower. So, bower is not a nest, it's just a uh, architecture structure to attract the female. So, the best architect wins. So, this is the Indian endemic sitting in front of the bower. You can see a lot of these plastics and rubbish and strings which have been stolen from the camps or from the village. And they have these shells, these little red flowers. It's got his own fruits, his whole pile over there. And he's got suffers from OCD. So if anything is disturbed, it comes back in 2 minutes and starts putting it back exactly where it started. I shall give us shot at this video, maybe not. As you can see, it's very particular how he even places these plastics. It doesn't want the silvery side up; it wants its blue side up. So he obviously likes his blue color. That's his game. So these plastics were actually from the hides to save us from rain. So he's torn off all these plastic bits and put it on his. Do anything else. So this is the masked bowerbird, but he's a bad builder, and he uses his charm and his looks to attract the girls. This is from the lower side of Arfak mountain. I'll try this video and see. This is the bower, which is a small little piece of architecture. Not much, nothing compared to the Vogelkopf bowerbird. Here's the female. So he's not much of a builder. So he just has a little thing which to show off his skills. Mostly goes by the color. Now this is another unique bird, the owlet nightjars. These are again in New Guinea, and I think there are one or two species in Australia. These are neither owlets nor nightjars. They're related to the swifts. They're nocturnal. They fly around in the dark with their mouth open, hawking insects, and they are master of camouflage. And you can see the big eyes, which shows that they're nocturnal. And they like to blend in where the dry leaves hang from inside the bushes, and they just sit underneath. So you have to have some local knowledge to know where to look. This is a tree kangaroo. Now, some people say that the kangaroos have started off from Australia and going into New Guinea, and they've started climbing trees. They're extremely ungainly. They doesn't seem very comfortable on trees. They look as if they're going to fall off any minute. This one is not in the wild. This was a rescued animal in somebody's backyard. The wilds are difficult to find because they're hunted. They're very shy, and so we were lucky to see this one. This is endemic to the Arfak Mountains. This is another one. This is a cuscus. This is also a marsupial. And by the way, New Guinea, like Australia, does not have any proper mammals except for the bats. And all have are marsupials, same like Australia. This is the ground cuscus. It came out at night on top of a tent. This is a red-breasted paradise flycatcher. Now we have come down to the lowlands of a place called Mulagufuk. This is in Raja Ampat, and they have their own unique species of red-breast paradise kingfishers and their own birds. This is a Papuan pitta, which is a brilliant bird to look at. Usual pitta habits, hopping around on the ground, responds to calls sometimes, sometimes not. Now there are three species of cassowary in the world: the dwarf, the northern, and the southern. The southern is what you have in Australia mainly, and the southern part of Papua. This is the northern cassowary. The helmet's different, the throat patches are different, and they are probably a little smaller in size. This is the first landing in 2013 at the Vago Island. Uh, I put this picture because it's very dramatic. Now we take a ferry and go there. Things have improved over the years. Logistics have improved in most places. But this was our first as we landed on the shores of Vago Island to look for the two endemic bird of paradise here. Raja Ampat is also famous for the corals and is one of the top diving places in the world. So these are all the corals that you can see along the. So it's a real paradise, not just birds. It's also the corals. So it's a fantastic combination of both. These are some of the seascapes around the island. Each of these little mounds are roosting places for spice pigeons and pied imperial pigeons. Lots of bats. Well, when it rains, it just pours in. So this is we just waiting for the rain to be over. At the back, there's one of our friends with his big camera under the plastic. They have kookaburras here. Kookaburra is not restricted to Australia. So this is the rufous-bellied kookaburra, which is one of the more common birds of West Papua and Papua also. These are small parrots, the double-eyed fig parrot, very specialized feeders, loves their fig trees. They're size of lovebirds, if you know what lovebirds look like, and fast flyers. Hard to find them because they don't sit long in one place. This is a Papuan hornbill. Papua is the last easternmost of the hornbills. Looks quite like a Narcondam hornbills. Maybe they got lit up and two species evolved. But looks very similar to a Narcondam hornbills. This is the only hornbill they have in Papua. This is a glossy mantle manucode. Looks like an Asian quail. Nothing very attractive about it. Now, this is a bird that David Attenborough described as the bird with the blue brain, the Wilson's bird of paradise. This is also a ground display bird. It lies like his leg. Every morning it comes early, starts cleaning his patch. Here it is holding his pose for the female who's probably looking for love. Let's see if we are lucky with this video. Is not always just the bird itself. What it does is also so fascinating. I mean, bird of paradise, yes, you take a photograph, you look at it, but what it does during these displays is absolutely brilliant. Now, this is the red bird of paradise. For me, this is the most good-looking bird of paradise in West Papua. It's very sleek, and again, there's a video. Let's see if you're lucky with the video. This one looks as if it's just out of the Bollywood film, you know, all the dancing and shaking his booty. Now, this is another couscous, Aigeo couscous. This is endemic to the West Papuan island of Raja Ampat. And it can be seen in the daytime actually. It crawls around. It's a beautiful looking animal. Coconut lorikeet. This is a split from the rainbow lorikeet of Australia. Now there are several species of these. Nectar eaters, beautiful birds. Now there are some photographs which have been borrowed from friends, of course, and people. This is a trumpet monochord. Again, looks like a Asian quail, but it's got a little crest on the top. Joby monochord, no good pictures. They're so shy. We went down to the southern part of Papua where we saw the greater bird of paradise. The paradise laps into PNG, but majority of it is in the southern part of Papua, West Papua. This is the Regiana bird of paradise. This is the national bird of Papua New Guinea, but there is a small little connection into West Papua where you can see this bird right to the southern tip. Another beautiful flame bower bird. This is from the PNG side. Now, most of these birds, and these birds do come on both the Papuas. This one has been photographed in the PNG side. Short-tailed Paradigala. We have seen the long Paradigala. This is the short-tailed Paradigala. brown sicklebill, slightly smaller than the black sickle, its cousin. This was again photographed in PNG. This is another West Papuan endemic, but we don't have access to this bird called the bronze parotia. We don't even know exactly where to look for it. The Carolus parotia, this is probably a new find to science just a few years back. This was found from the Poya Mountains. Beautiful looking bird. This is a tiny bird of paradise, just a little bit bigger than a sparrow, with his long streamers on his head. They likes the higher reaches. Of Saxony, bird of paradise. This is the black-billed sicklebill. Looks more like the pale-billed sicklebill. Doesn't have the long tail, and it displays like this on a tree trunk with his throat patches, throat feathers stuck out. Curl-crested manucode found in the right east tip of PNG. This is the endemic to PNG. This is the growling rifle bird. This is also a PNG endemic, similar to our magnificent rifle bird. Doesn't have this band around the breast or the blue on the head. Ribbon-tailed astrapia, another PNG endemic. This is the Stephanes, the most weird-looking birds. Look at the tail feathers going all this way down over here. Stephanes astrapia. This is also another astrapia from the Huon Peninsula, which is stuck right on the end of PNG. The Vance parotia, another PNG bird. Lovis parotia. This is a bluebird of paradise. This is another fantastic PNG. Supposedly, this bird do exist in West Papua, but we are not sure. We've been given some information, but needs an expedition to go to this village to look for this. We still don't know where to look for it. The Gouldi's bird of paradise, another PNG endemic. The emperor bird of paradise. Now we have come down to Australia. This is the paradise rifle bird from Australia and the Victoria rifle bird from Australia. So that's that for all the species of birds of paradise that we have. So Raja Ampat is a fantastic place for sunsets, and thanks to everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, Sujan. I'll just open the chat box so people can ask any questions.
Sorry for the video quality. I mean, it's difficult because the videos are important because that's how you can see the birds actually displaying. You know? But unfortunately, I think the network keeps going up and down, so videos didn't go very well. Yeah. So
Questions are coming up. So let me ask you the first question: why there's so many birds of paradise congregated in those kind of islands?
well, one thing they say is the the thing is that see, there is lack of predator birds and predators on the ground in New Guinea. There are very few predators which can go for these birds. And it's obviously the choice of the female. The female chooses the best dancer and the best displayer. So obviously the female makes sure what gene pool goes through, you know. So the males does not because it's equator and the food is available right through the year. There is not much variation in the season. The males can does not need to look after the chicks or anything because female can do that on his own, on her own, and so so that's how the evolution happened. I think the one main reason is lack of predators.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from Joseph Borges. How far are these places in West Papua from each other?
Once you have reached one of the areas, mostly within 1 hour, 1.5 hours flight from each other. So the problem is not all of them have road connections. They're all like little islands of forests, and there's a little town in the middle of a forest which had to fly in from A to B to C. So from north to south is it's like 2 hours flight. But the top three places you have, these are all connected within 1.5 hours flight.
Okay.
But if you fly from Jakarta to the furthest easternmost point of West Papua, it's a 6 hours flight.
Okay. There's a question from Josna. Did you need special permission to visit all these places to see endemics? Which
Don't
month
need,
do you,
no.
do you visit? Which month do you visit?
The best time to visit is usually from June to October, because the rainy season starts approximately from November, carries on into May. From June, the rain is off and on, but you can still see the displays happening. From July to October, I would say that is the best time.
Okay. There's a question from Kushankar Bhattacharya. Thank you so much for amazing session. How many are those under threatened category and what is the conservation status?
Well, given the condition of the forest in Papua, they are actually all least concerned. Papua is very sparsely populated. Even though there are threats coming up through plantations, I can talk more about the West Papuan, because West Papua last year they took a policy of not letting in any investments and from logging or from cement factories to keep their forests alive, because they want to do the Costa Rican model where bird watching can be the main income for the people. And you see, Papuans rely on the food from this forest. So they want to keep that. They've figured out that they want to, if they want to survive, they have to keep the forests alive. So they want to keep the forest going, and is basically all least concern as of now. But PNG side, there's a lot of mining going on. There's much more activity from the Australians, and there's a lot of palm oil coming in. But these are all very new such things that are happening. So we don't know the exact condition as of now. But there's a bit of concern going on. It's a matter of time.
There's a question from Sumesh Shankarantodi. How birds like Papuan frogmore kookaburra kind of birds are counted as birds of paradise?
No, they are not bird of paradise. No, they are not bird of paradise. I just of interest, because this place is so unique. I thought I'll put in a few other birds into the list just for the interest sake of bird watching.
What's the main criteria for birds of paradise then?
They are all related. They are all from the corvid family, and they're all related. The oldest evolution makeup of the bird of paradise is the trumpet manuko. That's the first bird of paradise. From there onwards, the rest of the evolution happened over the millions of years.
Okay, there's a question. Could you please share the list of their names? I think you can find it in the net.
I can share it. I have it in one place. I can share it.
So probably you can put down your email there so everyone can write it.
Yes. I can.
Okay, there's an interesting question. The same question I want to ask from Joseph Borges. Is it safe now? There was some political issue during the past 6 months.
Yes, we were there when the political issue opened up. It's similar like India, where we have political issues and things become quiet. But yes, for a little while it did erupt, but it's gone down again. Basically, Papuans want separation from Indonesia, so sometimes these movements trigger, and again the movement goes down. The thing with Papuans is the number of people are very small, and they're only in small towns or mostly in forests. Forest people don't even know where Papua starts and PNG ends. So it's all same for them. It's just a little patch of forest. At this moment, there is no issues. We were there the last 2 years. So
There's a question from Bhaskara Jyoti Banerjee. There's a basic question. Probably you can write to Sujan for that.
yes, I can't tell you it in public. You might get a little discount over there.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Satya and Masha is saying, where can I get loan from international bank? You won't get any loan now in the next few years.
Yeah, next few years. Any other question, guys? I think that's it. We're almost. Okay, let us know briefly what is their migratory behavior. Whether any.
No, they are not migrants at all. Zero. They live in a habitat which provides food all year long. There's hardly any change of season. It rains a lot in monsoon. It rains a little less in dry season. It rains all around the year. The fruits grow all around the year. There's no change in climate. There's no change in timing for sunrise to sunset more than 5 minutes. It's on the equator, so there is absolutely no migration at all.
Yeah. Any other question, guys? Oh, is there any snakes or amphibians at those mountains?
Yes, lots of. There's a lot of snakes. There's the bushmasters. A lot of the Australian snakes exist over here, and the bushmasters. There are green pythons. I don't know many names, but there are plenty of snakes.
Okay.
And amphibians, of course.
So no big raptors also.
There are very few. The honey buzzard types. I mean, there is some. There are some raptors, but the chances of them going for these birds are very slim. They go for much bigger stuff, like couscous and things like that.
Any other questions?
There is a Papuan harpy eagle, which is not exactly a harpy eagle. It's called the Papuan eagle now, with similar habit. When they are around, the birds go a bit quiet, but they're really. I don't think their numbers are so small. These raptors. I don't think that actually matters for these birds.
Thank you for this. Is there any permanent research station there?
No.
No. Is there any permanent research?
One of the least studied place on Earth.
Okay. Are there permanent research initiatives in the islands of these birds?
Not that I know.
What are the challenges of photography these birds?
Well, first there are two challenges. One is low light. Low light is because the bird of paradise, they prefer to do the displays early in the morning, and if you get a cloudy sky, etc., that's it. And that low light is the main problem. And secondly, for the ones in the canopy, getting the angle is also a problem. Most of the photographs you see from Tim Laman and all the professionals, mainly Tim Laman, because he had the longest run in Papua and PNG over 8-9 years. They are mostly from eye-level cameras set up, but that's not possible for an average tourist going there. But the ones on the ground, they are much easier. Like you saw, the photographs were better. Yes, low light is an issue.
Okay. Did you get any chance to visit wetlands to see water birds, such as magpie groves?
Yes, in the South Papua, there are a lot of wetlands, big ones, and there is a lot of the Australian fly migrations happening over there. We have Australian pelicans, you get Raja shell ducks, you get a lot of whistling ducks, there's green whistling teals, there's brolgas, which is the cousin of the Sarus crane. There is Australian bustards, avocets, lapwings. Yeah, South Papua has big marshes with lot of ducks and birds.
There's a question from Ronit that how would you compare birding in Mishmi with the Papuan forest? Is it more challenging or
Well,
what is?
well, actually, for the bird of paradise are the easiest birds to see because people know where they come for the dance because that's really the bread earner for the locals over there. So they mark out the trees and more or less they're birds of habit. They come there every day, similar time, and if the weather's okay, there's no issue. But the other birds, yes, it's like not like Mishmi Hills, it's more like Namdafa because or like Jaipur forest where you're inside the forest. Mishmi Hill, you actually bird along the main road where you have big open sky looking into the canopy. But here you're right inside the canopy. And because it's very hot, by 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, all the birds have disappeared. So then again, late afternoon from 4:30, 5, you start getting movement. It goes very quiet in the middle of the day.
Okay. Thank you. There's a question from Shivendu Das. What are the perception of people and native tribes towards birds and other animal conservation? How different rules works for different animals?
Well, for the guides in those areas, the two things are happening. You see, most of the Papuan forests are privately owned. So wherever the guides think there's a good bird, they pay good money to the landowner to protect these patches, and they don't disturb these birds. And because there's some the places where we go, there is some agriculture, so the dependence on eating these birds or killing these birds is very, very less. It's gone down over the years because the dependence on agriculture has come up, which again in one way is good and not so good because agriculture is opening up these forests because durian, palm oil, these are slowly getting in because the market's increasing, feeding the Jakarta market or feeding the local markets. And the places which are really tribal, they have no connection to the so-called modern world. For them, these birds are very, very well protected because these are part of their culture and their adornment for their own festivities. So if you remember, if you look at some of the old videos of David Attenborough in the black and white days, he was actually not shown any of the lekking trees by the locals because they thought it's going to disturb these birds. You see, these birds of paradise take 7 years to grow the feathers, and then one or two are taken for the headgears and things like that. So they're pretty much in harmony over there. There's no issues other than fringe areas where there's logging, which are mostly catering to Korea and China, and rice cultivation, which is also in South Papua, mostly for the Korean market. Um, there is some, of course, parrot smugglings going on, but limited. But there is some. Uh,
Uh, Sumesh, one more question from me. Is there any survey happening by any NGOs or government bodies there to verify its conservation status?
Very little. Most of these places don't have access. There are some NGOs over there who work in very small areas, but very, very limited. Very, very limited. Because most places in PNG, anyway, you're not welcome in most places. It's a very difficult, very hardcore tribal area where they don't like each other. Even guides who traveling with you have to get off your car, and a new guide gets in with you to move into new areas. Not so much in West Papua. West Papua is a bit more soft in these senses. But again, we only know places that we go. We don't know places where we don't go. It's a huge place. We only go to just 4 spots or 3 spots rather. Uh, so our knowledge on what's going on in the other places is pretty limited.
I think we are done with the questions. Dr. Meera is there. I think I call her to say a word of thanks from our side.
Thank you so much.
Can you hear me, Dr. Meera? Dr. Meera?
Hello.
Yeah, I can
Hello.
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 Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's my privilege to have been asked to propose vote of thanks and also to some comments on previous sections conducted in the Sinva. I started to join the Sinva from 20th April onwards from that freshwater identification of that fishes and all the previous section of this Hello.
Yeah, we are here listening.
Yeah, hello. Hi.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hello. All the previous sections was very informative. As because I am a basic taxonomist, so the sessions was very informative for me. And about the seminar, I was very much excited when I heard about the seminar, because I was reading about this Papua Islands as birds of paradise and all. So the seminar was very awesome and very informative, and about the videos and pictures. I should really hands up for your great.
Can't hear.
I think she's
Yeah.
network is good. Anyway, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Sujan.
No, welcome.
It was
Thank you for the opportunity.
yeah, it was a wonderful talk. I mean, those who are listening again, tomorrow we have a session on orchids. I mean, it's a repeated session, but that's you shouldn't miss it. It's amazing. And on behalf of Kottayam Nature Society and Alleppey Naturalists Society, we extend our thanks to Sujan. And yeah, I think.
David, he's
Yeah.
there.
Oh, she's back, Dr. Meera.
Okay. And your talk was very nice. I'm very excited. And once again, I thank Dr. Sujan Chatterjee for such a wonderful presentation. And also, I thank
Doctor,
Alappuzha Natural Society and Kottayam Natural. Okay, so sorry, Sujan Chatterjee, and also once again I thank Alappuzha Natural Society and Kottayam Natural Society, Dr. Hari Kumar and David Raju sir, for conducting such a valuable sessions in this lockdown days. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sujan. Okay, I think we are ending the session.
Okay.